Welcome back to We Are Cosmic, the channel where we cut through the noise and talk about real finance, real crypto, and real opportunity. If you are here because you want hype, moon emojis, and fake price predictions, this is not that channel. But if you want clarity, context, and calm, expert analysis of what is actually happening behind the scenes in crypto and digital finance, then you are exactly where you need to be. Today's video is extremely important, not because of rumors, not because of speculation, but because of what is happening right now inside the United States government, quietly, strategically, and very deliberately. We just received massive news coming directly from Congress, from regulators, and from the highest levels of the U.S. financial system. And most retail investors are not paying attention. While social media is busy arguing about prices, memes, and short-term candles, lawmakers and regulators are building the rules of the next financial system. So today, we are going to slow things down. We are going to listen carefully to what regulators are saying. We are going to connect the dots between regulation, tokenization, stablecoins, futures markets, and yes, XRP and the Interledger ecosystem. But first, we need to talk about the most important development of all, crypto regulation finally moving forward in the United States. Early this morning on CNBC's Squawk Box, Senate Banking Committee Chair Tim Scott confirmed that there is real progress on a major cryptocurrency bill. This is not a tweet. This is not an influencer opinion. This is coming straight from the U.S. Senate Banking Committee after meetings with top bank executives. Let that sink in. Banks are at the table, lawmakers are aligned, and the conversation is no longer about banning crypto. It's about who regulates what. This is the key shift. For years, crypto in the U.S. has lived in regulatory limbo. The biggest question has always been, is crypto under the SEC or is it under the CFTC? That uncertainty has held back innovation, scared institutions, and pushed companies offshore. But now, lawmakers are moving forward with a sweeping plan to regulate digital assets, including what is known as the Genius Act. The goal is simple but powerful. Clarity. Clarity over which agency oversees which types of crypto assets. Clarity over what is a security and what is not. Clarity that allows innovation to happen inside the United States, not outside of it. And here's something very important you need to understand. When lawmakers say there is progress right after meeting with banks, that is not a coincidence. Banks do not want to disappear. They do not want to be made obsolete by new technology. So they are actively working to shape regulation in a way that allows them to participate, not die. This is not crypto versus banks anymore. This is crypto with banks. That alone should tell you how late we are in this cycle. One of the most powerful voices in this discussion is Paul Atkins, who has been very clear about something most people missed. According to him, many ICOs should never have been treated as securities in the first place. That means they should fall outside the SEC's authority. Under his proposed framework, network tokens, utility tokens, and digital collectibles would be overseen by the CFTC, not the SEC. That is a massive shift. It signals a move away from punishment and enforcement towards structure and growth. For the first time in a long time, we are seeing cooperation instead of turf wars between regulators. The SEC and the CFTC are actually talking, coordinating, and working together. That has almost never happened before. This is an inflection point. And here's the key message for you as an investor. Regulation is not the enemy of crypto. Unclear regulation is every major financial market in the world, stocks, bonds, commodities, derivatives, only reached massive size after regulation brought clarity. Crypto is no different. What we are seeing right now in the United States is not an attack on crypto. It is the formal recognition that crypto is here to stay. The real breakthrough here is the cooperation between the SEC and the CFTC. Historically, these two agencies have fought for power. The SEC wants authority over anything that looks like a security. The CFTC oversees commodities and futures markets. Crypto sat in the middle, and that confusion froze progress for years. Paul Atkins made something very clear in his comments. He is not trying to grab power. He is not trying to expand the SEC's reach. Instead, he openly stated that many digital assets are clearly not securities. That is an enormous statement coming from someone in that position. Under this emerging framework, digital assets are being grouped into categories. Digital commodities, utility tokens, and digital collectibles are being treated differently from tokenized securities. This matters because once assets are clearly defined, companies know what rules apply and who they need to answer to. This is exactly what institutions have been waiting for. Banks, asset managers, and exchanges do not fear crypto technology. What they fear is regulatory uncertainty. They cannot deploy billions of dollars into markets where the rules might change overnight. That is why this moment is so important. When Atkins talks about working closely with the CFTC and avoiding turf battles, he is signaling stability. He is saying that the era of regulators fighting each other while innovation stalls is coming to an end. And that stability is what unlocks institutional participation. This is also why the Genius Act matters so much. While it focuses heavily on payment stablecoins, the bigger message is symbolic. For the first time, the U.S. government is placing its stamp of approval on a major digital asset category. That alone reduces risk across the entire ecosystem. Stablecoins are not just about payments. They are the bridge between traditional finance and blockchain-based settlement. Once stablecoins are recognized and regulated properly, banks can use them for instant settlement, reduced costs, and lower counterparty risk. And this is not theory. Paul Atkins literally said that stablecoin legislation allows the market to move toward instantaneous or near instantaneous settlement. That is huge. Traditional financial markets operate on delays. T+2 settlement means trades can take days to fully clear. That creates risk, cost, and inefficiency. On-chain settlement changes that completely. And regulators are now openly acknowledging that this technology can make markets safer and cheaper, not more dangerous. Another massive development that most people missed is the CFTC approving the trading of spot crypto products on registered futures exchanges. This is a quiet but powerful move. It means futures exchanges now have clearer permission to list crypto products for retail traders, including leveraged long and short positions. Why does that matter? Because it brings crypto deeper into the federal regulatory framework instead of leaving it trapped in a confusing state-by-state system. Federal preemption simplifies compliance and makes it easier for exchanges to operate legally at scale. This is how markets mature. When you zoom out and connect all of this, you can see the bigger picture forming. Regulators are laying down the rails, banks are stepping onto those rails, exchanges are being invited into the system instead of being pushed out. Crypto is moving from the Wild West phase into the infrastructure phase. And that is why this moment is so critical for long-term investors. This is not about tomorrow's price. This is about whether crypto becomes a permanent part of the global financial system. Paul Atkins said that stablecoin legislation will help move markets toward instantaneous or near instantaneous settlement. That is not a marketing phrase. That is a structural change to how money moves. To understand why this matters, you need to understand how broken the current system really is. Today's financial markets still rely on settlement models that were designed decades ago. When stocks or securities trade, the actual movement of money and assets can take 1, 2, or even more days to finalize. This delay creates risk, it creates costs, and it requires massive layers of intermediaries to manage those risks. On-chain settlement changes that entirely. When you use blockchain-based assets, particularly regulated stablecoins, you can settle value almost instantly. No waiting. No reconciliation days later. No uncertainty about whether the payment will clear. Regulators are now openly saying this can lower costs and reduce systemic risk. That is a huge shift in tone. For years, regulators framed crypto as risky and unstable. Now they are acknowledging that properly regulated digital assets can actually make markets more efficient and more secure. That is why stablecoins are being treated as a foundational layer, not a side experiment. This is also why the Genius Act is so important. Even though it focuses on payment stablecoins, it opens the door for on-chain delivery versus payment. That means securities and payments can settle together in real time on-chain. Once you understand that, you begin to see where this is going. Banks, clearinghouses, and large financial institutions are not interested in memes. They are interested in settlement efficiency, liquidity management, and risk reduction. Blockchain technology, when combined with regulation, gives them exactly that. This is also where the Commodity Futures Trading Commission comes back into the picture. The CFTC recently approved the trading of spot crypto products on registered futures exchanges. This might sound technical, but it is extremely important. For the first time, there is clear guidance that futures exchanges can list crypto as leveraged retail commodity transactions. That means regulated platforms can now offer long and short exposure to crypto under a federal framework. This reduces legal friction and removes the messy state-by-state compliance problem. In simple terms, it makes crypto easier to integrate into traditional financial markets. This is not about encouraging reckless leverage. It is about standardizing access under clear rules. Once those rules exist, institutions feel comfortable participating. And when institutions participate, liquidity grows, spreads tighten, and markets mature. All of this ties back to one central theme: infrastructure. We are moving away from crypto as a speculative playground and toward crypto as financial plumbing. Regulators are not building price charts. They are building rails. And once those rails exist, innovation accelerates. This is also why custody and asset safety are becoming such a big topic. As crypto integrates into mainstream finance, self-custody and secure vault solutions become critical. Institutions and serious investors care deeply about control, redundancy, and access. That is why we are seeing the rise of assisted self-custody models, systems where users maintain control of their assets, but with safeguards in place for key recovery, instant trading, and continuity. This hybrid approach fits perfectly into the regulated future of crypto. It bridges the gap between personal sovereignty and institutional standards. So when you hear about vault services, multi-key custody, and Web3 wallets that support multiple chains, understand this. These are not gimmicks. These are requirements for the next phase of adoption. The bigger picture is very clear now. Regulators are aligning, stablecoins are being legitimized, futures markets are opening, custody is evolving, and settlement is moving on-chain. This is the foundation layer. How does this actually work in the real world? It is one thing to talk about on-chain settlement in theory. It is another thing to move money across borders, between banks, under different regulations, in real time. This is where most blockchains fail. Global payments are not just about speed. They are about routing, compliance, identity, liquidity, and trust. This is exactly why systems like SWIFT dominated global finance for decades. They did not move money themselves. They moved messages that created obligations between institutions. Now enter the Interledger Protocol, ILP. Interledger was designed to do for money what TCP/IP did for the internet. It does not replace every system. It connects them. It allows different ledgers, banks, blockchains, and payment networks to talk to each other without forcing everyone onto the same platform. That is the key idea most people miss. Interledger does not care if you're using a bank account, a blockchain, a mobile wallet, or a card network. It breaks value into small packets and routes them across systems until they reach the final destination. This makes it currency agnostic, ledger agnostic, and regulation agnostic, while still respecting local compliance rules. This is why serious financial institutions pay attention to it. In the material we just reviewed, there was a powerful proof of concept involving SEPA, the European payment system, and interledger routing. The idea is simple but revolutionary. A sender triggers an interledger payment, and once that payment settles, it automatically triggers a payout directly to a European IBAN bank account. No wallet required for the recipient, no hosted balances, no friction. The recipient only needs a bank account. That alone should tell you how mature this technology is becoming. Compliance is handled at the sender level through KYC, while trust is maintained through institutional peering agreements. Metadata, such as the legal name of the recipient and entity type, is included to satisfy banking verification requirements. This is not crypto fantasy. This is financial engineering. Once the interledger payment settles, the system immediately triggers an off-ramp to SEPA rails using pre-funded liquidity. In many cases, the payout can be instant. In fallback scenarios, it may take a few hours. Either way, it is dramatically faster and more efficient than traditional cross-border transfers. Now, here is where XRP enters the conversation. XRP is not just a token. It is designed as a settlement asset. On the XRP ledger, transactions are fast, cheap, and final. That makes it ideal for bridging liquidity between systems. When combined with Interledger, XRP becomes one possible path for value to move between ledgers. Not the only path, but a very powerful one. This is why XRP keeps appearing in discussions about cross-border payments, settlement, and institutional use cases. It fits into the infrastructure model regulators are now endorsing. It is not about speculation. It is about movement of value. When regulators talk about instantaneous settlement, this is what they mean. Systems where payments can be routed, settled, and finalized without days of delay or layers of intermediaries. And here is the most important insight. Interledger is open and neutral. Ripple introduced it, but it does not own it. It is now governed by the Interledger Foundation and operates as an open standard, similar to how internet protocols are managed. That means no single company controls it. That is exactly what regulators and institutions want. This is how you connect siloed systems across the globe. Banks, blockchains, mobile money networks, and payment providers can all plug into the same value routing layer without giving up control. This is not about replacing the financial system. It is about upgrading it. It is about what role each asset is designed to play in the future financial system. Bitcoin is widely viewed as a store of value. People buy it because they believe in its scarcity, its history, and its narrative as digital gold. And for those people, Bitcoin does exactly what they expect it to do. It sits there. It holds value. It represents belief. XRP is different. XRP was designed to move. It was built for speed, liquidity, and settlement. That means its value is tied less to narrative and more to usage. And that distinction matters a lot as markets mature. Here's the question every investor should ask themselves honestly. If you had a large amount of capital today, would you rather put it into one asset that mainly stores value, or into an asset that can be used across payments, settlement, liquidity routing, and tokenized finance? This is not about price predictions. It is about function. When people compare owning one Bitcoin to owning thousands of XRP, they are really comparing two different risk-reward profiles. Bitcoin's upside comes mainly from adoption as a store of value. XRP's upside comes from adoption as infrastructure. If global finance moves toward on-chain settlement, instant payments, and interoperable systems, then assets designed for movement naturally become more valuable. That does not mean Bitcoin disappears. It means the market becomes multi-asset, not one-dimensional. This is also where the conversation around yield becomes important. For a long time, XRP was criticized for having no native yield. It was a non-productive asset. That criticism mattered, especially in a world where capital looks for returns. But that narrative is changing. Platforms like Flare are introducing ways to generate decentralized yield on XRP through mechanisms like FXRP. This is a big deal. It turns XRP from a passive asset into something that can participate in decentralized finance without sacrificing its core utility. When you can earn a reasonable yield on an asset that already has strong settlement use cases, the investment profile changes. You are no longer choosing between utility and income. You can potentially have both. Early data suggests that retail participants are leading this adoption, with institutions moving more slowly due to internal processes and risk analysis. That is normal. Institutions always arrive later, but when they do, they arrive in size. From an institutional perspective, earning even a modest yield on an asset already held on the balance sheet is extremely attractive. It improves capital efficiency without requiring speculative behavior. This is how serious money thinks. The bigger point here is this. The crypto market is evolving from a speculative casino into a financial toolkit. Assets are being judged not just by price action, but by what they can actually do. Bitcoin remains important, XRP remains relevant, and new layers like Flare expand what is possible. For the first time, U.S. lawmakers are openly admitting that digital assets need clear rules, not endless enforcement. The SEC and the CFTC are no longer fighting over territory, they are defining boundaries. That alone removes one of the biggest risks that has held this market back for years. Then look at stablecoins. Stablecoins are being recognized as a critical payment and settlement layer. Regulators are saying out loud that on-chain settlement can reduce costs, lower risk, and improve market efficiency. That is a complete reversal from the fear-driven narratives of the past. Now add infrastructure. Futures markets are opening under federal oversight. Custody solutions are evolving towards secure, assisted self-custody models. Payment systems are being redesigned around instant settlement instead of multi-day delays. This is how real financial systems are built. And then connect interoperability. Interledger is showing how value can move across banks, blockchains, and payment networks without forcing everyone into the same system. XRP and the XRP ledger fit naturally into this model as fast liquid settlement tools. Not as hype assets, but as plumbing. Finally, add yield and capital efficiency. Platforms like Flare are transforming previously non-yielding assets into productive ones. That matters enormously to institutions. Capital that can move, settle, and earn yield is far more attractive than capital that simply sits idle. When you look at all of this together, one thing becomes very clear. This market is not being built for traders. It is being built for systems. Short-term price action will always be volatile. Narratives will always shift. But infrastructure, once built, does not go away. It compounds, it locks in usage, and it creates long-term value for the assets that sit at the center of it. This is why timing matters so much. Most people only pay attention when prices explode. By that point, the groundwork is already done. The smart money moves when regulation, technology, and policy quietly align long before headlines turn euphoric. That does not mean you blindly buy anything. It means you stop reacting emotionally and start thinking structurally. You ask better questions, you look at incentives, you observe what governments and institutions are actually doing, not what influencers are saying. This is also why education is so important. If you understand how settlement works, how liquidity flows, and how regulation shapes markets, you stop being shaken out by noise. You become patient, you become selective, and you stop confusing volatility with risk. The biggest risk in crypto today is not regulation. The biggest risk is not understanding the shift that is already happening. As always, none of this is financial advice. It is perspective, it is analysis, and it is meant to help you see the market more clearly. If you found value in this breakdown, make sure to support the channel. Like the video, share it with someone who needs clarity instead of hype. And if you want to stay ahead of these structural shifts, subscribe to We Are Cosmic, because this is not just about crypto, this is about the future of money. I appreciate you being here. I'll see you in the next one.